The scent of roses and morning dew filled the garden, a familiar comfort I hadn't realized I missed until this moment. I blinked against the sunlight, taking in the vibrant colors of tulips and lavender, the soft rustle of leaves in the early breeze. And then, slowly, reality settled over me like a velvet cloak. I was alive. Alive. 3 days before Frederick's proposal. 3 days before the treachery that had cost me my life, my breath, my dignity. My heart pounded as memories came crashing back. The quiet laughter in the next room, his mistress's shadow, the searing pain as the poison claimed me sip by sip. I staggered to a stone bench, clutching my skirts, my fingers brushing the petals of a rose. I was trembling, with fear, with anger, and with the exhilarating rush of knowing I had a second chance. Beatrice? I spun around to see my maid, Eliza, standing at the garden gate, worry etched on her face. "My lady, you're awake. We feared." "I know," I interrupted, voice trembling with restrained fury. "I know everything." Her eyes widened. "Everything? But how?" I took a deep breath, letting the calm of the garden steady me. I remember every detail. Frederick's plan, his smile as he poisoned my tea, the way he thought he would inherit everything without consequence. But now, I have the power to stop him. Eliza stepped closer, her hand lightly brushing mine. "What will you do, my lady?" I straightened, the first spark of that old resolve igniting in my chest. "I will not marry him. I will not be a victim again. And I will make sure the man who tried to kill me sees what true power looks like." Her lips pressed into a thin line, admiration and worry mixed in her gaze. "But the proposal? It's in 3 days." "Then we have 3 days to change everything," I said firmly. "And I will need an ally, someone who can shield me, someone who will see Frederick for the fraud he is." Eliza hesitated, then nodded. "There is one person, my lady. Archduke Leopold. They say he is a monster, but he respects truth and strength." I arched an eyebrow, intrigued. "A monster, you say? And he respects strength. Interesting. Tell me more." "Leopold rarely attends balls, rarely shows his face in public. The scar on his cheek has made him infamous, feared even. But those who know him say he values honesty and has a soft heart hidden beneath his reputation." I smiled faintly, a plan forming. Perfect. If Frederick is to be stopped, I will need a monster who is not afraid of a lioness. Eliza looked uneasy. "Do you think he will help you, my lady?" I glanced at the roses swaying gently in the wind, the garden my sanctuary and my battlefield. "He will," I said with certainty. "And if he doesn't, I will find a way to make him see reason. For now, we prepare. Frederick will propose in 3 days, and when he does, he will see the strength he never anticipated." As Eliza retreated to make the preparations, I allowed myself a moment of quiet triumph. I was alive. I was aware. And Frederick's carefully plotted plans would unravel before my eyes. The morning sun glinted off the fountain, and I touched the petals of a rose, a vow forming on my lips. This time I survive. This time I win. And for the first time since my death, Lady Beatrice felt unstoppable. The carriage rocked gently as it carried me through the cobbled streets of the capital, my hands clutching my skirts tightly. Each passing building reminded me of Frederick's deceit, his smug smile, and the poison-laced tea that should have ended me. I had escaped death once, and now I would ensure he paid for every ounce of treachery. "Eliza," I said, voice tight with determination, "we need to reach Archduke Leopold's estate before the afternoon. I want him aware of Frederick's proposal, and more importantly, I want him to understand why he should protect me." Eliza nodded silently, her eyes flicking toward mine with concern. "Are you certain, my lady? The Archduke, they say he is cold, cruel even. Few dare approach him, and fewer return unscathed." I let a faint smirk play on my lips. "Cold? Perhaps. But cruelty, Eliza. I have learned cruelty. And Frederick has taught me exactly how to handle it." We arrived at the estate, an imposing structure of gray stone and shadowed windows, perched on the edge of a cliff overlooking the river. The air seemed heavier here, and whispers of rumors about the Archduke's temper danced in the wind. I took a deep breath, smoothing my skirts, as we were announced to the guards. My Lady Beatrice Lauron seeks audience with Archduke Leopold, one guard intoned, his voice echoing in the hall. A moment later, the double doors opened, revealing him. He was taller than I expected, broad-shouldered, and there was a quiet intensity in his dark eyes. The scar running down his cheek only added to the aura of danger, marking him as the man who inspired both fear and fascination across the empire. And yet, as he regarded me, his expression was unreadable. "Lady Beatrice," he said finally, voice low and resonant. "You are bold to seek me out. And you are rumored to be a monster," I replied evenly, holding his gaze. "Yet monsters are useful when the alternative is betrayal and death." His dark brows rose, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. A clever retort. Bold, and not without risk. "Why should I aid you, Lady Beatrice?" I stepped closer, letting confidence mask the flutter in my chest. "Because Frederick is a fraud. He seeks to inherit my estate and marry his mistress, and he would not hesitate to kill me to ensure it. I need protection, Archduke, and in return, I offer a chance to redeem your reputation, to show the Empire that you are not the monster they believe." His eyes softened slightly, scanning my face as if searching for truth. "And why should I trust a socialite who has been poisoned by her own husband?" "Because I survived," I said, lifting my chin with quiet defiance. "Because I am aware. Because I know the stakes, and I will not be underestimated again. Trust me, Archduke Frederick is already planning his next move. I offer you loyalty and opportunity. You offer me protection. Together, we can expose him before the proposal." He studied me for what felt like an eternity, the room thick with tension. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Very well, Lady Beatrice. I will listen. But know this. I am no fool, and my patience is not infinite." I let a small, victorious smile curve my lips. "You'll find, Archduke, that I am not one to waste a second of your patience." He inclined his head, a subtle acknowledgement of our unspoken alliance. "Then let us begin. Tell me everything." As I stepped closer, recounting Frederick's deceit in detail, I felt a spark of hope. Perhaps the rumors were wrong. Perhaps the monster of the Empire had a heart beneath the scar, one that could protect me, and, maybe, one that could admire my courage, my resolve, my fire. And as I spoke, I realized something I hadn't admitted even to myself. I was intrigued. The drawing room of Archduke Leopold's estate was dimly lit, the flickering flames of the fireplace casting shadows across the high, vaulted ceilings. I stood near the window, my reflection staring back at me in the glass, a woman reborn, determined, and no longer afraid. Across from me, Leopold leaned against a carved oak desk, his scarred face unreadable, but his dark eyes fixed on me with a keen intensity that made my pulse quicken. "Tell me again," he said, voice low and controlled, "why you expect me to risk my reputation for you." I met his gaze, unwavering. "Because, Archduke, Frederick is reckless. He will act sooner rather than later. If I do not protect myself, he will succeed in taking everything from me, perhaps even my life. And if you shield me, you will also gain the advantage of showing the Empire that you are not the monster they believe you to be. We both win." Leopold stepped closer, his presence imposing yet oddly comforting. "And you? What do you gain beyond survival?" I allowed a faint smirk, letting the hint of fire in my voice spark curiosity. "Freedom. Power. The chance to walk openly in the world without fear of a man who thinks he can control me. And perhaps," I let the pause linger, letting my words brush against the unspoken, "a partner in someone who understands ambition." He tilted his head slightly, the faintest curve of a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Careful, Lady Beatrice. Bold words can be dangerous." "Danger has never frightened me," I said, letting a spark of playfulness enter my tone. "And perhaps you'll find it invigorating." For a moment, The room was still, the air charged with tension neither of us could deny. Then Leopold moved, circling behind the desk to stand nearer. "Very well. I will protect you," he said, voice low, deliberate, his eyes studying me. "But understand this. I do not tolerate deception. I expect loyalty, and I will not be manipulated." I allowed a small laugh to escape me, soft, confident. "You have my loyalty, Archduke. But I make no promises about manipulation. Some situations demand a touch of strategy." He raised a brow, the corner of his mouth twitching with amusement. "And I suppose I am to trust that this strategy benefits both of us?" "Absolutely," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "We expose Frederick, secure my inheritance, and show the Empire what true power looks like. You gain influence. I gain safety and independence. And together, I let the words hang, deliberate and charged. We make sure no one dares underestimate either of us again." Leopold's expression softened, just slightly, and he stepped closer, so that our shoulders almost touched. "You are intriguing, Lady Beatrice. Not just for your cleverness, but for your fearlessness. I will admit, I find it compelling." A shiver ran down my spine, equal parts thrill and something else, attraction, undeniable and stirring. I let my lips curve in a playful, teasing smile. "Careful, Archduke," I said softly. "I have been underestimated before. It rarely ends well for the man who tries." He chuckled low, a sound that sent warmth through the room. "I am not like Frederick. And I am no ordinary man either. Perhaps we are well matched." I felt the electricity in the air, charged with anticipation and the promise of an alliance forged in fire. "Then let us begin," I said, voice steady and daring. "We have a proposal to intercept, a count to unmask, and an empire to impress." Leopold inclined his head, offering a small but genuine smile. "Lead the way, Lady Beatrice. I will follow. But beware, every alliance comes with its own temptations." And as the firelight danced between us, I realized this alliance was more than just survival and revenge. There was danger, yes, but also the spark of something far more thrilling. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel not just hope, but curiosity, and perhaps the faintest flutter of desire. The grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers and gilded mirrors, the very image of aristocratic perfection. Guests murmured in hushed anticipation, champagne flutes tinkling like tiny bells. And at the center of it all, Count Frederick, smiling smugly, unaware that the night he intended to crown himself master of my fortune would instead become his undoing. I stood at the top of the sweeping staircase, every eye falling upon me the moment I descended. My gown shimmered like moonlight on water, elegant and commanding. Frederick's smile faltered ever so slightly, a small crack in his carefully constructed facade. "Beatrice," he said smoothly, stepping forward. "You look radiant tonight. And I trust your father has shared my proposal with you?" I let my smile be sweet, yet sharp enough to cut. "Yes, Frederick. I have considered it carefully." The ballroom held its collective breath. Every noblewoman, every suitor, every whispering guest felt the weight of the moment. Frederick's eyes gleamed with expectation, but I did not flinch. I was no longer the naive bride he had plotted against. And he prompted, voice dripping with false charm. "Your answer?" I stepped forward, letting my gaze sweep across the room before resting on him, steady and unyielding. "I will not marry you, Frederick. I reject your proposal. I reject your lies. And I reject the man you have proven yourself to be." A murmur rippled through the crowd, but I ignored it, focusing on the shock on Frederick's face. He opened his mouth, perhaps to argue, perhaps to threaten, but no words came. From the shadows near the balcony, Archduke Leopold emerged, his presence dark and commanding. The scar on his cheek caught the light, yet it did nothing to diminish the elegance and authority he exuded. His eyes met mine, and in that glance, I felt strength, protection, and an unspoken thrill of connection. Frederick turned toward him, panic flickering. "Leopold, you cannot." "I can," The Archduke interrupted smoothly, voice carrying over the whispers of the assembly. And I will. She is under my protection. I stepped closer to Leopold, our hands brushing lightly, just enough to send a spark of heat at my arm. The subtle contact was deliberate, a shared secret amidst the glittering eyes of the court. Thank you, I murmured, soft and intimate. For being here, for understanding. His dark eyes softened slightly, and he inclined his head, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his lips. I told you, he said quietly, almost teasing, I am no fool. And I have a particular appreciation for courage and intelligence. My lips curved into a knowing smile. Then perhaps you will enjoy the next part. I turned my gaze back to Frederick, who now looked pale, cornered and impotent. Your debts, your schemes, your mistress. The Empire will know the truth. And you, I said, letting my voice drip with finality, will no longer have power over me or anyone here. The guests gasped, whispers growing into a symphony of shock. Frederick stammered, unable to find words, while I felt the exhilarating thrill of triumph course through my veins. Leopold's hand brushed mine again, this time more deliberately, his thumb tracing a path that sent a shiver down my spine. Well done, Lady Beatrice, he murmured, voice low and rich. You've shown them all what true strength looks like, and you've captivated me in the process. I let a soft laugh escape me, heart racing, daring, and warm. Captivated, Archduke? That's a dangerous word. His smirk widened, dark and teasing. Dangerous, yes. But so is every woman who dares to outwit a count. I met his gaze, the tension and attraction between us crackling like lightning. Then I suppose we are both dangerously well matched. And as Frederick slumped into despair and the murmurs of the court swelled around us, I realized the game had changed entirely. I had power, protection, and the thrilling, magnetic Archduke Leopold by my side. Tonight, the Empire saw a lady reborn. And I had just begun to play. The study in Archduke Leopold's estate smelled of polished wood and old parchment, the faint trace of tobacco smoke curling in the air. Outside, the gardens were quiet, but inside, tension hung thick as Leopold and I reviewed every detail of Frederick's debts, his lies, and the strings he thought he controlled. Beatrice, Leopold said, leaning against the edge of the large mahogany desk, his dark eyes studying me with that inscrutable intensity. You've proven clever, brave, and ruthless enough to survive any threat. But I must warn you, his voice dropped low, almost teasing. Ruthless women tend to make monsters very interested. I raised an eyebrow, a smirk tugging at my lips. Are you suggesting that I've caught the attention of a monster? He stepped closer, the scarred line of his cheek catching the lamplight, shadow dancing across his strong features. I am a monster, Lady Beatrice. But some monsters are easily tamed, and some are not. His gaze locked onto mine, heavy and charged. I have a feeling you will test me. I felt a shiver of thrill run through me, equal parts challenge and desire. Oh, I intend to, I said softly, stepping closer. And I suspect you'll find it exhilarating. Leopold's lips quirked in the faintest of smiles, and I noticed the subtle warmth in his eyes beneath the stoic mask. He circled the desk, close enough for our shoulders to brush occasionally, each contact sending sparks along my arm. Exhilarating, he repeated, voice low, teasing. I dare say you are more dangerous than Frederick ever imagined. And more entertaining, I added, letting the playful tone mask the deadly seriousness of our plan. Now, Archduke, we need to ensure that Frederick cannot recover from his humiliation. We need proof of his debts, his schemes, everything. He nodded, walking behind me and leaning close to point at the documents sprawled across the desk. His warm breath brushed my ear, making my pulse quicken. I could help you uncover more than just finances, Lady Beatrice. Secrets, allies, those who would betray him in a heartbeat. I tilted my head, letting the words linger, teasing yet dangerous. And what do you want in return, Archduke? Nothing, he murmured, voice husky. Except perhaps the chance to see your fire in action again. And maybe your hand in mine at the right moment. I felt my cheeks warm, but my smile was deliberate and playful. You ask much, monster. He leaned even closer, and I felt the electricity in the air thrum between us. And you, he said softly, dark and teasing, invited. I turned toward him, letting my gaze hold his, daring, challenging, yet flirty. Then we are both dangerous. Indeed, he whispered, his lips almost brushing mine, a promise of something thrilling and inevitable. But the best kind of danger. We spent the next hours strategizing, planning every move against Frederick. But beneath the maps, the ledgers, and the meticulous notes, the tension between us thickened, playful and intimate, each glance, each brush of his hand against mine heightening the thrill. By the time we finally paused, the candlelight had softened, casting a golden glow across the room. Leopold stepped closer, and I did not flinch. You are remarkable, he murmured, voice low, almost a confession. Fearless, brilliant, captivating. I think you have tamed me more than you realize. I let a soft laugh escape me, leaning just slightly closer. Then perhaps, I said, voice teasing, we are both learning from each other. His hand found mine, the touch light, yet deliberate, a silent promise. And as the night settled around us, I realized that our alliance was more than just strategy. It was charged with anticipation, with desire, and with the thrilling knowledge that together we were unstoppable, in power, in revenge, and perhaps in something far more intoxicating. The ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers, the crowd buzzing with anticipation and curiosity. Tonight, Frederick's carefully constructed world would unravel, and I would stand at the center, no longer the gentle, unsuspecting bride he thought he could control. I adjusted my gloves and lifted my chin, feeling Archduke Leopold at my side, a quiet, steady presence that both thrilled and reassured me. Remember, Leopold murmured, his voice low and intimate, brushing against my ear, stay poised. Let them see you as the woman you've become. Confident, untouchable, brilliant. I glanced up at him, catching the faintest smirk tugging at the corner of his scarred lips. And you, Archduke? Will you simply watch, or will you ensure he truly understands? His dark eyes sparkled with a hint of amusement. I intend for him to never forget. Frederick's entrance drew murmurs. He looked resplendent, smug, certain of his victory. I allowed a smile to curve my lips, sweet on the surface, but razor-sharp beneath. He approached me, extending a hand, his eyes gleaming with expectation. Beatrice, he said, voice smooth and practiced. Tonight, the Empire celebrates your engagement. I trust you are ready to accept your place as my wife and my equal in status. I allowed a soft laugh, the sound echoing lightly across the room, drawing curious glances. Equal? I repeated, stepping forward, so every eye could see the fire in mine. You overestimate your position, Frederick. Tonight, I am neither your bride nor your victim. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but I held my ground, letting the tension build. Your debts, your lies, your cruelty, all of it will be revealed. My voice sharpened, deliberate. And you will see what it means to underestimate me. Frederick's face drained of color, his confidence cracking. He opened his mouth to respond, but the murmurs of the court drowned him out. From behind me, Leopold's presence was solid, protective, and impossible to ignore. His hand brushed mine lightly, a subtle touch that made my pulse quicken. Allow me, he said, voice deep and resonant, turning toward the assembled nobles. The Count is a man whose ambition exceeds his morals. His debts are vast, his promises false, and his intentions criminal. Lady Beatrice requires no defense, for the truth speaks for itself. I felt the thrill of victory surge through me. Frederick stammered, words failing him, his carefully curated mask crumbling. Every eye in the room bore witness as Leopold methodically exposed every deception, every betrayal. When he finally finished, silence reigned. Frederick, pale and humiliated, stumbled backward, defeated. And then, his bitterness boiled into anger. "This isn't over, Beatrice," he hissed, but the roar of whispered admiration for us drowned his threats. I turned to Leopold, letting my fingers brush his deliberately, feeling warmth, strength, and that intoxicating tension between us. "It is over, Frederick. And unlike you, I will not falter." He leaned closer, his lips brushing my ear in a teasing, intimate whisper. "You handled that beautifully," he murmured, low and private. "Fearless, brilliant, utterly captivating." I felt heat rise to my cheeks, but my smile was playful, daring. "Flattery again, Archduke? You must be careful, I might expect more than just words." His laugh was soft, warm, and charged. "Then perhaps I shall give you what you deserve in due time." And in that moment, as Frederick's downfall became undeniable and the whispers of the court filled the room, I realized something exhilarating. I was free, powerful, and alive. And beside me was the Archduke, dark, protective, and dangerously magnetic. Our fingers intertwined subtly, an unspoken promise lingering between us. Revenge had been sweet, but the thrill of desire, the tantalizing pull of a connection neither of us could ignore, was far sweeter. Tonight, I had claimed my life. And perhaps, in the process, I had claimed something even more dangerous: Archduke Leopold's attention, and maybe his heart. The study at Leopold's estate was quiet, the only sound the crackle of the fireplace. Outside, the gardens were bathed in moonlight, silvering the roses and hedges, but inside, a different kind of heat hummed between us. I had spent the day savoring the victory over Frederick, watching him crumble, feeling the empire finally acknowledge my strength. But now, alone with the Archduke, the thrill of triumph was intertwined with a far more intoxicating tension. Leopold leaned against the desk, arms crossed, eyes dark and unreadable. "You handled him masterfully today," he murmured, voice low and deliberate, brushing my ear as I passed by him. I have rarely seen someone command a room like that. I felt my pulse quicken, heat rising to my cheeks. "I had an excellent teacher," I said lightly, letting my words brush against the unspoken. "And an excellent partner." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him, the faint scent of cedar and leather enveloping me. "Partner," he repeated, testing the word as if tasting it for the first time. "I like the sound of that, especially when it belongs to you." I raised an eyebrow, daring him. "Do you now? And what would a partner want, Archduke?" His dark eyes glimmered with mischief and something deeper: desire, respect, and a quiet admiration. "A partner deserves loyalty," he said slowly, his voice dropping to a husky whisper, "and perhaps a little indulgence." I laughed softly, the sound a mixture of amusement and thrill. "Indulgence, you say? I hope you understand. I am not easily indulged." He smirked, leaning closer so that our shoulders brushed, and my heart stuttered at the contact. "I would not dream of it," he said, voice low, teasing. "I intend to earn it, step by step. And Lady Beatrice, I suspect I will enjoy the challenge." I met his gaze steadily, letting the tension linger. "Then perhaps we are well matched, Archduke." Two formidable forces, testing each other's limits. Leopold's lips curved into the faintest smile, his hand brushing mine ever so lightly, deliberate, tantalizing. "Limits are meant to be tested," he murmured, his thumb tracing the back of my hand, sending a shiver up my spine. "Especially when the reward is you." I felt my breath catch. "Careful," I said softly, teasing, but my voice betrayed the fluttering anticipation I felt. "I might demand more than you expect." He laughed, rich and dark, leaning close so that his lips nearly brushed my ear. "Then I hope you do," he whispered, the heat of his breath sending warmth through me. "Because I will give you everything in time." I felt the magnetic pull between us, the unspoken promise, and the thrill of desire that was impossible to ignore. I had survived treachery, reclaimed my power, and now I had the Archduke, protector, ally, and undeniable temptation, at my side. Leopold, I murmured, tilting my head toward him. I think we make a formidable team. We do, he agreed, voice husky. And I think, he added, dark and teasing, the world has yet to see just how dangerous we can be together. I smiled, letting the tension linger, the heat of the room mixing with the fire between us. Then let us ensure they never forget. And as we stood together, hands brushing, breaths mingling, I realized that victory had never felt so intoxicating. Not the downfall of Frederick, not the whispers of the court, but the thrill of desire, the spark of connection, and the promise that I was finally, fully alive. The grand hall of the imperial palace shimmered with gold and crystal, yet nothing could outshine the sense of triumph that coursed through me. Frederick had been exiled, his schemes laid bare for all to see, and the empire now recognized me not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. Every whisper, every glance, every note of admiration in the room was a testament to the strength I had reclaimed. I stood beside Archduke Leopold, whose dark eyes never left mine. The scarred, feared monster of the empire now seemed impossibly human, protective, tender, and utterly magnetic. I felt a shiver of anticipation, knowing that tonight was not just a celebration of power, but also of something far more intimate. Beatrice, Leopold murmured, his hand brushing mine in a deliberate, intimate gesture. Look at what you've done. The empire sees your brilliance, your courage, and I see you. Truly see you. I allowed a soft laugh, a mixture of triumph and delight. And I see you, Archduke. Not as the monster they speak of, but as the man who stood by me when no one else would. Who understood that survival is only the beginning of victory. He stepped closer, the heat of his presence surrounding me. And victory, he said low, teasing, deserves a reward. One that is shared. I felt my pulse quicken as his hand found mine fully, fingers intertwining with mine. The touch was electric, grounding yet thrilling. And what reward? I asked, voice steady but breathless with anticipation. Does a monster offer his ally? Leopold's lips curved into the faintest, darkly amused smile. A partnership, he said, voice dropping to a husky whisper, that extends beyond politics and power. A bond that neither Frederick nor the Empire can touch. I tilted my head, daring him, teasing, yet my heart swelled with warmth and desire. A bond, Archduke? And what does such a bond demand? Trust, he murmured, leaning closer so that his breath brushed my cheek. Loyalty. And perhaps a kiss to seal it. My breath caught, but I did not pull away. Instead, I let the moment linger, letting the intensity of our journey, the betrayal, the revenge, the triumph, flow into this intimate space. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his head. Our lips met, first softly, then with the undeniable heat and passion that had been simmering between us since our first meeting. The kiss was everything, a promise, a celebration, a declaration. I felt his strength, his protection, and his desire for me, and I realized that we were more than allies, more than partners in strategy. We were equals in fire, intellect, and heart. When we finally pulled back, our foreheads resting together, Leopold's dark eyes gleamed with admiration and longing. You are extraordinary, Beatrice. Fierce, clever, and utterly captivating. I smiled, breathless and exhilarated. And you, Archduke, are more than I imagined, more than the Empire dared whisper. You are mine, and I am yours. He kissed me again, soft and lingering this time, sealing the promise of our bond. Around us, the court may have watched in awe, but in that moment, I was aware of nothing but him, the man who had stood by me, protected me, and ignited a fire I would never extinguish. Tonight, Frederick's betrayal was nothing but a memory, and the Empire bore witness to a new truth. Lady Beatrice was alive, powerful and untouchable, and beside her, the Archduke, fierce, protective, and endlessly alluring, would remain her partner, her protector, and the keeper of her heart. As we embraced again, the chandeliers above casting sparkling light across the hall, I whispered softly, "Together, Archduke." always together. He smiled, deep and dark and entirely his own. Always, Beatrice. Always. And with that, we sealed our victory and our love with a kiss that promised forever.